What's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the Madden expansion franchise here on Madden 23, where we took a bunch of expansion draft players and we try to build them up into a Super Bowl contender. And we are here in the bye week, so gonna take a look around the league, see where we stand at roughly the halfway point of the season, as well as look towards the future as we prepare for our first NFL draft with this expansion squad, man. So I hope you're excited for it, and I hope you're excited for this little mid-season update as well. If you are, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. And listen, we're doing a little bit better than I thought we were going to be. In spite of being in the bottom 5 in offensive points per game and in dead last in terms of points allowed on a per game basis, we are still hanging tough. We have found a way to win a few games. It hasn't been pretty. All of our wins have been close, but for a couple of notable exceptions, we have actually been competitive in our games. You know, we barely lost to the Patriots, beat the Ravens, did have a few blowouts in the middle, lost to the Bills, Bengals, and Jets pretty badly, but we're able to sneak a 1-point win against the Vikings before taking 3 consecutive losses by just 1 possession, and we finished up our bye week with a 20-7 victory over the Cleveland Browns. So, you know, carrying some momentum going into the bye week as we take a look at the second half of our schedule. We do get to play against the Texans, and the Texans are in a rebuilding mode themselves. But then we go on the road, we take on the 49ers, we take on the Chargers, the Bills. All of them are going to be road games before we finish things out with 3 winnable games, I would think. Playing against the Packers, we play against the Patriots once again, and then round out our season against the New York Jets. So all that being said, we could find a way to win a couple of games before this season is over, get to ourselves to 5 wins. That would be really reasonable if we were able to get to 5 wins. That's honestly not too terribly bad, but this is where we currently stand as of right now. This is what the NFL standings is looking like, and I'm really just focusing in on what we have going on with our team. We currently have the 4th worst record in the NFL, so if we did end up, you know, the season ending today, we would have the 4th overall pick in this upcoming NFL draft, which is exactly where I wanted to be. Wanted to put ourselves in a spot where we would be drafting high, and that's a really big thing for me, because you're gonna see when I show you this roster and who's gonna have to leave from free agency. We're going to have a lot of needs. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's basically going to be all hands on deck in terms of the NFL draft. We're going to have to find some talent, but we are looking at a freeway tie with us, the Chicago Bears, and the Indianapolis Colts. The Bears do have the tiebreaker on us because we did lose to the Bears, so that's why we're listed as the number 29 ranked team. And hey, even the Lions, we have lost to the Lions, but we did beat the Vikings, so there's a way that we can still sneak into that top 2, I would imagine, if it does come down to that. But this is what the rest of the NFL standings is looking like. We'll focus in on the AFC. The Pittsburgh Steelers have the number 1 seed as of right now. We actually almost beat them on Sunday Night Football, but just could not hang on and win, unfortunately. Other teams that are in the playoff hunt includes the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're sitting at number 2 on top of the AFC South Division, followed by the Buffalo Bills, who lead our division in the AFC East, and some 5-4 teams in there as well. The Jets, Browns, Broncos, Texans, who are actually doing surprisingly well, and then the Tennessee Titans are all sitting at 4-5. So they're all in that playoff hunt with teams like the Ravens and the New England Patriots. They are actually just on the outside looking in as of right now. So that's where we currently stand. We do have, at the very least, the 4th overall pick. But not only do we have the 4th overall pick, we do have another pick that we can work with as we take a look at our draft picks for this upcoming season. So we have the 1st round pick from the San Francisco 49ers. So for that game against San Francisco, what ends up happening is, okay, we can lose, but then either way, like, it benefits us, right? If we lose, then our pick gets better. We have the third pick right now. If we win, then San Francisco's pick gets better. So stuff like that. We do also have New England's third round pick. We do, however, do not have a fourth or a sixth round pick to work with, but we do make up for that, of course, with 2 first round picks and 2 third round picks. And we have 7 total draft picks to work with, so trying to keep that all in mind. 5 of those picks are, of course, going to be in the first round. Now, as for how the individual stats are going so far this season, we do actually have a couple of guys on our roster that are actually on the top performance list. We start with the passing leaders. Right now, Tom Brady is in first with over 3,100 yards and 25 touchdowns. Carson Wentz is second in the NFL, but look whose quarterback's in here. Our quarterback, Baker Mayfield, with that 60% completion percentage. He is going to be third in the NFL. He's got 2,900 yards and 17 touchdowns. So really not that bad. He's kind of having a little bit of a resurgent season after he did have those shoulder issues back in 2021. And he's playing decently well. It hasn't led to wins, but part of the reason why we've been competitive is honestly because we did maximize what we can from our passing offense. And it also helps when you have a top receiver that happens to be available through the expansion draft. Amari Cooper, who I don't know how he was made available, but we were able to snag him from the Dallas Cowboys back when the offseason was a thing leading up into this year. And Amari Cooper's been really good. 66 catches, 944 yards, which is tops in the NFL. He's also got 9 of those touchdowns. So more than half of the touchdowns that Baker has thrown, they have gone to Amari Cooper. And easy to see why. Amari Cooper, he is a special talent. I really want to try to keep him along for the long haul. And even if we can't re-sign him in the future, I am certainly going to make sure that we get the most out of Amari Cooper. So that's really big in terms of building our team from the ground up. That's a nice foundation piece. Now, one caveat to the success that we've been having is that we've also made a lot of mistakes this year. Baker Mayfield, while I was talking about how he has all those yards and quite a few touchdowns, he has already thrown 24 interceptions, so that's certainly alarming. I'm pretty certain it's going to be number 1 in the NFL. We'll go ahead and check that out real quick, because I'm really curious to see who leads the NFL in interceptions, and of course, it's not even close. Baker is leading the NFL in interceptions. The only one kind of close is Sam Darnold, who's playing for the Carolina Panthers, followed by Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, both of which do like to take risk at times, so I'm not mad at it. Baker Mayfield does not have a player tag, though, and he is on the last year of his deal, so if we wanted to move on from him, we do have that option. Now, in terms of running the football, it has been a little bit of a struggle, and that has mainly been due to the struggles that we do have on the offensive line. Don't really have a complete team, unfortunately, and Benny Snell has kind of paid the price for it, even though this is his first year as a bell cow running back in the NFL. He has 3.6 yards a carry, does have 4 touchdowns on the ground, but has also put the ball on the ground 3 times so far this season, 2 of which did happen in one of our games. Benny Snell did end up with 757 yards to this point, so he does at least have a really good shot of reaching 1,000 yards before this season is over, so long as he can remain healthy. As for our receiving core, that is of course led by Amari Cooper, who is closing in on 1,000 yards on the season, but do have some solid receivers outside of Amari Cooper as well. Curtis Samuel is having a nice season too, 51 catches for over 600 yards. He has not found the end zone, but has been doing a nice job. As a compliment, he is of course our number 2 wide receiver. Other people that are stepping up is Trevin Wesco. He has actually played better than I anticipated. He ends up with 585 yards and 4 touchdowns. He does have those 54 catches as well. Someone who I have been kind of surprised to not see him get a dev trade upgrade opportunity, just because he has been playing pretty well. I think he could, get that kind of chance eventually, but it just hasn't happened yet. something I'm certainly looking out for. And then, of course, the other main player that I wanted to talk about is Scotty Miller. He is our number 3 wide receiver. He's had 441 catches for 500 yards thus far, so he could also reach 1,000 yards as well this upcoming season, which would be really good for him. That would be a career high, I believe. As matter of fact, we'll check his stats real quick to see where the 5'9" guy stands out. And yeah, he's already hit his career highs. His rookie year had 33 catches for 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's basically there right now, and we still have 7 more games left to play. So I really like where Scotty Miller is at this point of the year. He is on the last year of his deal, and unfortunately does not have a lot of interest in re-signing with us. So maybe one of those players that we might have to allow to walk away. As for the defensive side of the football, there's been some positives, and there's certainly been some things that we need to work on as well. Defensively, I really like where our linebackers are, and Bobby Wagner is a really big reason for that. He is an aging superstar, but that being said, still that superstar X factor that is the leader of our defense, and that is no questions about that. Really does a little bit of everything aside, maybe struggle a little bit with the coverage, but nobody is perfect, right? He already has 83 tackles, 53 which were solo. He does have 5 TFLs and a few sacks as well, not to mention able to get an interception and force a couple of fumbles. So he's been really good for us in terms of leading our defense. However, one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is our second and third biggest tacklers are both in the secondary. Jojuan Williams, he is someone that is able to step up a little bit. 53 tackles, does have a couple of interceptions as well. So someone that has played pretty reasonably well, and someone that has a new player tag that I'm not familiar with. The trade target, he was added to the trade block, and that's because he does not really want to be there necessarily. We're gonna have some decisions that we need to make, of course. AJ Bouye is our top corner though, as AJ Bouye, 49 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 sack. He's also been playing pretty solid football, but I'm really surprised by the amount of turnovers that we have forced. Now, we don't have like a huge turnover bug, but I mean, a few guys with multiple interceptions. I feel pretty good about that. Kendall Sheffield and Logan Ryan both have multiple interceptions as well. And then if you take a look at the forced fumbles, we're also able to force multiple fumbles. Bobby Wagner's got multiple of them, but AJ Bouye, Anthony Hitchen, and Michael Pierce have all been able to force some fumbles. Finally, the last thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of our stats at this point in the season is how are we looking at in terms of sacks. D Ford is leading the team in sacks right now. He's got 7.5 sacks right now. Yes, he is listed as a bridge player, and not sure what we want to do moving forward with him, but he's shown that he's got a little bit more in the tank than anticipated, which is good to see. Zadarius Smith also has multiple sacks as well. He's got 2.5 sacks at this point in the season, so he's been okay. Has been a little bit disappointing for us here. Only 34 tackles as well to this point. I expected a little bit more from him. Cleveland Farrell is trying to prove that he is not a bust, as he was a former first-round pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. He has able to get a couple of sacks, made some nice moments as well. Same with Broderick Washington, 1.5 sacks for him, and then Anthony Hitchens is the last player to have 1 full sack thus far in the year. He has 48 tackles and well as 11 interception return yards. But this is where it gets a little bit dicey for our team, because even though we're not that great, we're supposed to be, well, at least the game is saying that we're $40 million over the cap. That's what we're currently showing as. So we got some difficult decisions that we need to make, and unfortunately, what I'm hoping for is that $40 million that we're in the hole by, hoping that that's a glitch and it's something that gets cleared up in the offseason so that we can actually sign some of these guys, because I would at least consider signing guys like Thomas Morstead and Baker Mayfield. But even with that situation, we would let go some guys. Scotty Miller, for example, he has no interest in signing with our team. He's our wide receiver free, and I would go ahead and just let him go. He has no interest being here. We would really have to overpay to keep him around, and I don't think that's worth for a guy that doesn't even have a star dev trait, right? But there's some other guys that I do want to keep, John Jenkins is one of them. Brian Beluga is one of them. AJ Bouye, Anthony Hitchens, really just allow us to focus in on more specific positions instead of taking this best available approach as we're trying to build our football team from the ground up. That being said, we would say goodbye to guys like Jojuan Williams, Cleveland Farrell, Greg Whittle, for example, guys that we would again have no interest in signing with what we're trying to do. And if they have no interest, we're just going to go ahead, let them go, and we're just going to move on and try to replenish our roster that way. So let's say we do get the very worst scenario, and that $40 million we are actually going to be over by, even if we somehow find a way to clear the cap penalties, right? So we would be saying goodbye to guys like Baker Mayfield, so we would need a new quarterback. Nick Foles wouldn't cut it, and I wouldn't even consider putting Skylar Thompson in a football game, at least at this point. He's got a lot of raw development that he needs to do, and Nick Foles is well past his prime at this point. Running back Benny Snell, I really don't want to let him go either. But that we might be forced to. On top of that, Eno Benjamin would actually be the only running back on the roster, and even though I feel like we could be fine with Eno Benjamin as our starter going into next season, we probably want to get at least one more running back in here, because Gerald Dokes, he's also in the last year of his deal. We would have to let him walk. Fullback, I'm not so worried about, and I actually might mess around and either trade Keevan Carter away so that we could create some more cap space that way, or maybe even somehow find a way to get additional draft picks. But there's not really a lot on fullbacks. Probably would get maybe a 7th rounder, 6 at most, but fullback is a dying position anyways. Wide receiver, we should still have Amari Cooper and Curtis Samuel, so I would feel fine with them as my 2 main wide receivers, but I would certainly be looking for a wide receiver free, with Scotty Miller planning on hitting free agency, and Mike Stratton is simply not ready yet to take that wide receiver free role. I think at best he's a 4, and on a competitive NFL team, he's really should be on a practice squad, to be honest with you guys. Tight end, we would only have 1 tight end, and that's Luke Farrell. And listen, I'll be attacking the tight end position anyways. That was something that I wanted to address, but Luke Farrell, not good enough to be a starting tight end. And as much as I really want to keep Trevin Wesco, he's been a pleasant surprise. Same issue that I'm having with other teams or other positions, just the cap space isn't there, unfortunately. Moving on to the offensive line, Jared Hurst at least is locked down to next year, but I expect him to take a little bit of a nosedive. Might want to think about getting his replacement potentially in the next NFL draft. Guard is also going to be looking okay. I think Roger Saffield at least has another year in the tank after this, so I'm not really necessarily worried about the guard position. Center is something that I am a little bit more concerned about. We will not have any centers on the roster after this season, and John Feliciano is going to be someone that should be on the decline, as he's now at 30 years old to this point. Now, one thing that we could do, we could draft an interior offensive line and kick him out to center. That could be a potential option, but we would also think about what we want to do at right guard with Robert Hunt. He was on IR, so that's why I couldn't cut him necessarily. Hakeem Adebayo is currently starting there. Finally, to round out the offensive line and the offense in general, is Brian Beluga, who I really like. He does really good stuff on the offensive line. I really like what he's been able to do, but that being said, on the last year of his deal, so we might have to let him walk. Might need to get a right tackle in the upcoming NFL draft. Another big need for us is on defense and defensively. D Ford, he's been good, but also on the last year of his deal, so we might need to find his replacement should we not be able to sign D Ford in free agency. As for right end, of course, we have Broderick Washington, and while he is signed through next season, he is not a starting caliber defensive lineman. Don't know if he is NFL caliber yet. Might be better served on a practice squad if this is a more competitive team, but he is a body. We could look for his replacement as well. As for defensive tackle, I'm not necessarily worried there, as Michael Pierce should have that position locked down over the next few years. Pierce is an 88 overall, so, plan on having him play through the entirety of his contract. Up next, we have the linebacker position, and technically a left outside linebacker is Patrick Johnson. He's not a starter in actuality. I do have Clelin Ferrell starting at his position instead, but he is signed for the next few years, so he has some time to develop him. Over at the right outside linebacker position, we got Cedarius Smith. He is going to be signed through the next few years, but he's going to take a very significant cap hit, and we've seen him not perform very well this year, so we might have a tough decision for him this offseason. Clelin Ferrell is someone that I really want to keep, but again, don't have the cap state for it, so we might have to let him walk. Same thing with Porter Gustin. We will be looking for an outside linebacker. Following at the middle linebacker position, Bobby Wagner will have one of those middle linebacker spots locked down, but Anthony Hitchens, he is supposed to go into free agency. And what I do with the middle linebacker position is really dependent on what Channing Tindall does. Now, Channing Tindall is a 69 overall. He is a rookie. He's on his rookie deal as of right now. Only signed for under $1 million at the moment. If he can develop enough, I would be okay with having him slide up to that second middle linebacker. And, that could solidify our 3-4 scheme that we got going on. If not, then we could look for a middle linebacker in the upcoming draft as well if the opportunity presents itself. But the biggest problem that I am going to have this offseason, at least on the defensive side of the football, is our defensive backfield. We'll only have 2 guys under contract, and that is Jimmy Moreland and Trill Williams, which both of those guys are hardly playing to begin with. Both AJ Bouye, Kendall Sheffield, and Jojuan Williams, they're all slated to hit free agency. With Jojuan Williams in particular, he is slated to not be around since he wasn't really feeling what we got going on here. So we will definitely need a corner. That is a immediate need, especially at least one, since I'm not comfortable with Trill Williams being a starter. Finally, we got free safety, and Logan Ryan is set to hit free agency, and so is Cedric Redwine, leaving only Vernon McKinley III, so getting a safety would be advantageous, whether it be through trade or through free agency. And at the strong safety position, feel a little bit better. Got Jamar Johnson, who I'm hoping can develop a little bit more, as well as Brady Breeze, who is signed for the next 3 seasons. But now we take a look at the upcoming NFL draft class, and one thing that I did go ahead and do is I got the authentic NFL draft class for the 2023 draft. So this does have real players like Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Kayshon Boutte are all examples of that. So let's take a look at each position and see what we got going on. So as of right now, we are projected to have 2 borderline top 5 picks. And the top 5 picks, as terms of what the mock drafts are saying, Bryce Young, Jalen Carter, CJ Stroud, Kayshon Boutte, and Ryan Anderson Jr. That is the top 5 players projected in this draft as of right now. That being said, here's what we know. We don't need a top wide receiver. We need a wide receiver free, but we don't need to get a wide receiver in the first round. We got Amari Cooper. We also have Curtis Samuel. So we have those working for us. We also don't necessarily need a interior defensive lineman. Jalen Carter, unless he shows ability to, play on the edge, I'm really not interested in bringing in another defensive tackle. Because again, we already have Michael Pierce. So I don't want to spend that high of a draft pick to garner a interior defensive lineman. So the 3 players that I am going to be looking at, though, in terms of our first couple of picks, I'm going to be looking at Bryce Young. Bryce Young, he is listed as an improviser. He is obviously from Alabama. I really like what he can bring to the table in terms of what's been confirmed. He's got an A medium accuracy, A short accuracy, and also has very good mobility. He's a very good throwing quarterback. One knock on him is that he doesn't have elite arm strength. His throw power is decent to solid, so it will get the job done, but he doesn't have a great throwing arm, but his accuracy is pretty darn good, so at least there's that, especially his throw on the run. Throw on the run is an A, so that's one person that I am looking at in terms of what we want to do with our top 5 picks. And then, of course, the other quarterback that is available, the Ohio State quarterback, CJ Stroud. Now, CJ Stroud, he is from Ohio State, does not use the mobility as much. Now, he is a field general archetype, which even though he's not an actual scheme fit, I usually like to play as a pocket passer a little bit more because I have a little bit harder time moving in the pocket, just kind of how I go about using him. He does have decent athleticism, we know that he doesn't use it, right? So CJ Stroud, he's capable of doing those read options, but obviously in college, and you guys have probably seen this as well, he's not somebody that is going to run with the football very often. In fact, he rarely does it. But what I do like him over the Bryce Young is, as CJ Stroud, he is slated to have great to elite throw power. So I think slight edge for CJ Stroud over Bryce Young if we have a choice between these two quarterbacks when we are drafting, because I think it's harder to build a stronger arm, make your quarterback stronger. It's either you have it or you're not. Like guys like Josh Allen, for example, you know, he had a great arm, but he wasn't very accurate coming out of college. It's easier to fix throwing mechanics than it is to get stronger as a quarterback, right? In terms of the throw power. So I would give the slight edge to CJ Stroud in this case if both quarterbacks are available. And I think even though it doesn't say he's a scheme fit, he's someone that I would prefer to have over Bryce Young. Although if I do end up getting Bryce Young, I'm feeling pretty happy. Also, another top 5 pick in here is Kayshon Boutte. Now, again, don't really need a wide receiver, at least not this early in the draft. I will likely be targeting a wide receiver maybe in that round 3 or 4 range if the opportunity presents itself. But one person that I am very intrigued about, though, is Will Anderson Jr. He is also from Alabama. He's a speed rusher. He's a very physical player. From what we've been able to gather, very good job in terms of breaking away from blocks. He's got A block shedding. His pursuit and tackling is either acceptable or extremely good. We'll need to do some more scouting on him in order to figure that out. Zone coverage does leave a little bit to be desired. Zone coverage at best is average, but it's probably somewhere in that D range. So someone that is going to be rushing the quarterback from us from day one, not someone that I may not want for in terms of coverage linebackers. That's not what I'll be bringing him in for, but he still has A awareness, so he's a very smart football player. He also has A finesse moves, B power moves as well, so he does have plenty of moves that he can go to in order to get to the quarterback. His one knock, though, is his catching. Catching is only a D, so he won't be getting a ton of interception. But what about outside of the top 5? What else could we possibly go after in order to get our football team better? We'll take a quick look from a position-by-position standpoint to take a look and see who could get my attention in the later rounds outside the first round of the NFL draft. Other quarterbacks to be considered, of course, Anthony Richardson. He's a first-round lock according to Madden, with Will Levis and Tanner McGee in that late first, early second kind of range if we wanted to go there. But one person that particularly has my attention is Hendon Hooker. He's an improviser. He knows how to win. We've seen this in his games against Alabama, where he's able to get the job done there, but he is a very raw player. Someone who I might not be comfortable with starting on an NFL field right away. He does have BD accuracy, so he does have a good deep ball, but in terms of those shorter throws, he leaves a lot to be desired, and then his under pressure is at a B. But he does have solid mobility. He could get out of the pocket to a degree, but is a raw player that would need some development right away. Has a decent ability in order to break some sacks, but definitely cannot sell play actions very well at all. He only has an F in the play action, but what he does have, he can throw in the run. I like his throw in the run. He can throw accurate balls under pressure. He does have a B under pressure. So, but there's some things that certainly need to be worked on, and he's 23 years old, so not someone that I feel has a lot of upside. But if we do not go quarterback in the early rounds, Hendon Hooker is someone that I'm looking at if we want to go that way. And then, of course, other quarterbacks that are in here that are projected to be drafted include DJU of Clemson, Vil Jerkovich of Boston College, Tyler Van Dyke of Miami, and the last is Spencer Radler of South Carolina. Now, for the running back position, there is only one running back right now that is projected to go in the first round of the NFL draft, and that is Bijan Robinson. He is from Texas, of course, and Bijan Robinson has some very good attributes. First of all, I really love his vision. He's got an A ball carrying vision, and he also has a B in carrying, so he's not going to be someone that's going to put the football on the ground very often. He's also only 20 years old. He'll be 21 in his first NFL season, so certainly has a lot more upside as well compared to other prospects in this draft. That being said, with more pressing needs, this would be someone that, unless Bijan Robinson fell outside of the first round, I would probably not go after with my first two picks. Again, right now I'm picking in the first, top 5 of the first round, but he's a really intriguing player. He can truck some people. He's got a great stiff arm as well. Spin move is good too. He's got an ace spin move. Someone who I'm keeping my eye on as of right now, especially if we cannot get Benny Snell to come back to us somehow. Other running backs I'm looking at here is Jamar Gibbs. He pops off the screen for Alabama. He's one of their more explosive weapons that Bryce Young gets to work with. Zach Evans is a good one too. He's helped transform the Ole Miss offense from what was previously known as an air raid, and now they like to run the football pretty well, and Zach Evans is a pretty big reason for that. He's listed as a second or third round pick, and if we do end up going with a running back after our first couple of picks, Zach Evans will be someone that I have some pretty good interest in. Also has really good ball carrier vision and a B in carrying, but does not have as much upside as a Bijan Robinson. He is already 22 years old, and he's currently through his last year of college eligibility. Outside of the first few rounds, so a couple of running backs I'm keeping my eye on as well is Zach Carbonot, who would fit our scheme pretty well. He's from UCLA. Sean Tucker is another running back I'm looking at. He's from Syracuse. And then Joshua Manning from Illinois State. He's a power back. Could be intriguing prospect. Someone that we could maybe get in the 6th or in that 6th or 7th round kind of range. Someone that that kind of route that we could do. Now for wide receiver, I once again said, listen, first couple rounds, not worried about wide receiver because we do have our first 2 wide receiver spots pretty locked down. So, as much as I want to get a Kayshon Boutte or a JSN of Ohio State, that should say Ohio State. Don't know why that says Abilene Christian, but it is what it is. That's not really what I'm looking at. But one play that we could go is we could go with Wayne Friedman of Florida International. He's currently projected to go as a day 3 pick, but could carry some serious speed. He can make some plays. He's 5'11", 206 pounds, and in spite of that, pretty good catch in traffic. Going from 8 in that A to C range, probably around B. Does need to work on his hands a little bit. That's probably why he's a day 3 selection. Also has a release that has a little bit more to be desired. But if we did want to get a wide receiver free, Wayne Friedman would be someone that I would be looking at. Someone in that 4th, 5th, 6th round if we want to go in that general direction. Raheem Jarrett is also really interesting to me. I actually played with Raheem Jarrett in one of my NCAA 14 dynasties in the past, and he was someone that played really darn well. Raheem Jarrett also a day 3 pick, but does not have very good catching ability. C to F in catching. That catch in traffic is also very average, but he can run a pretty good deep route. Would just be a very developmental kind of prospect, but someone that I'm high on in terms of personal experience of actually being able to play with him. But after that, we go on to the tight end position, where tight end we are going to need a starter, right? With the impending free agency of Trevin Wesco, it only leaves Luke Farrell on the roster, and I want to get a tight end that could start day 1. And someone that could certainly fit the bill is Michael Mayer. He's from Notre Dame, 6'4", 250 pounds to go with it as well. He is in his 5th year, so again, not someone that has a huge upside, but can do everything you can ask him to do. Got a B catching traffic, B catching. Also a great run blocker. He can assist in that running game as well. So someone that I'm really excited about as a prospect. He's listed as a 1st or 2nd round projection, so that tells me we could maybe snatch him up in the 2nd round after our top 5 picks, so that whoever we do ends up getting at the quarterback position, what we could end up doing is we can make sure that at least our new quarterback has an additional weapon to work with and give him the best opportunity possible to be successful. Other tight ends that I could go with should we not be able to get Michael Mayer, we could also go with Kendra Latu. He is from Alabama. He's a 3rd or 4th round selection, as is Jaleel Billingsley and Zach Kuntz. Both are either late day 2 guys or early day 3 players. Those that I'm going to be kind of keeping an eye on as we are moving forward through the draft process. Tucker Kraft could also be an option as well. I really like his size, 6'4", 263 pounds, as is DJ Johnson. He's 275. Now this is really interesting. 275 and actually has solid to good agility, solid to good speed. He could be a very intriguing prospect here if we don't get Michael Mayer. So lots of solid options here in this tight end draft. Now, a huge importance for us is getting some quality offensive linemen, because we could use some multiple linemen going into this draft. Now, there could be multiple players that we could be in play for. Paris Johnson Jr. is certainly an option. He could be a generational piece on that offensive line, as is Robert Scott Jr. He could be a later 1st round pick and someone that could easily fall out of the 1st round as well, just given the talent that is in this draft class. And what's good about this draft as well is that offensive line is one of the stronger drafts that they got going on here, right? So he's got A awareness. That's really good. He won't be fooled very often. Other offensive linemen that we can go includes DeAndre Fox of Indiana. Jack Smith of Clemson could be in consideration as well. Looking at center, meanwhile, I don't really have a lot going on at left guard. Left guard, there's a lot going on here. Could go with Andrew Voorhees, Cooper Beebe, Osiris Torrance, and Emil Okorie Jr. But that's really dependent on if they can kick at center. If they can be able to do that, then we can certainly consider them to be drafted. And then for the center position, Jared Patterson out of Notre Dame is an option as well. 1st or 2nd round selection, someone that we could get after our first couple of picks. John Michael Smith is also someone I'm potentially looking at as well. He's a 2nd or 3rd round projected pick. After that, we have right tackle, and Zion Nelson is a pure 1st round pick. The 6'5", 318-pound player from Miami has B awareness that he's got going on right now. But we also have Broderick Jones, the Georgia offensive lineman. Knows how to move some bodies for sure. B in pass block power, and A in interior blocking. That's a huge deal, having that A impact blocking, because he'll be able to win at the line of scrimmage to help aid in our running game. Finally, a couple of guys to keep looking after is Chance Hardy of Penn State and Henry Hammond of USC. But now we get into the defensive side of the football, and defensively we could use some interior defensive linemen, especially over on right end. Just getting some quality players there. So Miles Murphy and Isaiah Foskey, if they again fall outside of the first round, we could definitely go with either of these two. They are very talented football players. Zach Harrison is also an option. Really like what he's done at Ohio State. Jonathan Armstrong is also a good pick that we could get as a day free. 6'6", 267 pounds. Does not have very good block shedding at all, though. Block shedding. That's a major red flag for a defensive lineman, but does have a good power move and is a decent tackler as well. We're going to have to work on him a little bit if he wants to be an effective defensive lineman at the NFL level. Bryson Cochran is kind of on that similar boat with that block shed, but being power moves and being tackling means there's positive signs of growth, especially from a program that's known for its offense. Finally, Emmanuel Gary is considered an option as well. He's from Clemson and decent block shedder. Does not have a very good finesse move, but that bull rush can be pretty good, although we need to develop his tackling should we select him. Over at the right end spot, we got Jamil Laurier, who we're looking at, who's got that first/second round projection that they got going on. Really great block shed. He's got a block shed, but not a very good finesse move. C power moves. So his defensive end moves, not that great, but can shed some blocks and could help us in run support right away. He is a run stopping archetype, as is Eric Goldsberry, the defensive end from Michigan State. He's a second and third round selection, but he seems like a great tackler. A tackling, B block shed. I actually see him as a little bit better of a prospect than Jamil Laurier outside the first couple of rounds. So we do jump into some questionable territory. Darnell Penn could be an intriguing prospect. He does have pretty good block shed and is a late day 2 pick. After that, I'm not worried about defensive tackle, so I'm not going to cover them too much. But we'll be looking at outside linebacker, and one person that certainly catches my attention right away is Trenton Simpson from Clemson. He is a speed rusher, 22 years old. Great pursuit of the football. He's got a pursuit, so someone that is really helpful, especially in terms of run support as well as getting after the quarterback, help out with those screens, do a little bit of everything. Don't really know much about him after that, but we project him to be a decent tackler, could do a little bit of everything. Also, someone that catches my breath a little bit is Derek Hall out of Auburn. He is a second or third round selection with decent block shed, but cannot really do a great job in zone coverage. If we don't make him a speed rusher, that could be an issue, but given how our scheme currently is, I think he'll be just fine for us, as would be the same thing with Max Pearson, who's got good pursuit and average tackling, and Daniel Saucedo of Baylor, who's a good tackler and does have decent job of getting off of blocks. Other outside linebackers to look after in the left outside is Reed McGowan, Montel, and Brenton Rifano is someone to certainly look out for as well. And finally, for middle linebacker, rounding out the outside the linebacker group, few linebackers actually that we can snab outside of the first round. Noah Sewell, who is the brother of Penei Sewell, he could go in the first round, but should he not go in the first round, well, Noah Sewell could fit that billing pretty well for us. A block shedding, average pursuit as well, and also could have some pretty solid awareness as well. C awareness, I'm projecting personally, but could catch a few interceptions once that awareness develops. Also, someone that could be an option is Henry Tatato of Alabama, who's a decent pursuit guy, and Darren Waters of Vanderbilt. He's a third or fourth round selection, but someone that is very average block setter, average tackling. The pursuit is not very good looking, which is a little bit concerning. But if we can have him by, Bobby Wagner, then I'm not as concerned about it. he could learn a lot from him. Other middle linebackers I am considering, because I really want good fits. Felix Benson is one of them, and Deontay Riley could be another one as well. These are very solid options that we could go with. But the biggest concern I have about my football team is the cornerback position. And in terms of that cornerback position, while there's a lot of guys in the first round, first couple rounds that don't really fit what we do, there's a couple that do that catch my attention. Emmanuel Forbes of Michigan could do a little bit of everything, a nice all-around player, good catching, so he does have good ball skills, good man coverage, good press, and has decent zone coverage as well. He likes to be an aggressive ball hawk as well, which I would rather have someone be aggressive, be too aggressive, and we try to tone that down than not be aggressive enough and try to teach him how to be more aggressive. So Emmanuel Forbes does intrigue my interest a little bit. Also intriguing my interest at the quarterback position is Malachi Moore, who is also a first or second round projection. He's a slot corner from Alabama. His catch and traffic is, average, but he does have good man and press coverage and is a better cover guy than what Emmanuel Forbes is. Also, someone that I could look at is Kai Blue Kelly of Stanford. He's a third or fourth round projection, but could play serviceable coverage for us should he be selected on our team. Zach Sutton is another one. He's a day free pick, but does have good catching ability, so someone that we could use in those Hail Mary type of drills as well. Garrett Williams also might be on the radar, as is Jose Mack of Alabama. And last but not least, we got our safeties. We got Jalen Catalon of Arkansas, who Jalen Catalon, he's someone that really can lay the lumber. He's a hybrid archetype, so that means he's someone that can come up in the run support and lay some serious damage, or he can play out in coverage. And he's an A-man coverage guy, which means if he's fast enough, we got to see what his combine and what his college pro day is, all that good stuff. If he can do that, then we can always convert him to corner, because I think he has that ability to convert in that direction. Now, someone I don't necessarily feel the same way about, but could possibly go and play safety for us still, is Ronnie Hickman of Ohio State. He has improved his draft stock under defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, but someone that still has some work to do. Not a very hard hitter. He's okay in man coverage, and his zone leaves a little bit more to be desired. That is an issue for me as a safety, but someone that we could develop, someone that has really made himself into an NFL prospect. And finally, with the strong safeties, there's not a lot of strong safeties that are in here, but Christopher Smith is in here. He's a third to fourth round selection, as is Harold Newton and Percy Parsons of Texas Tech. So if we want to go strong safety in the later rounds, these three could certainly be some options, as is Tremaine Baker of Southern Utah. Small school kid, so he would have a lot to prove. But guys, that will actually wrap up the entire draft board that I'm looking at in terms of options, just to get your mind wandering a little bit in terms of who you want to see join this team when we get to the off season. But next episode, we're going to go fast fire here. We do not have any more primetime games in this season, and given the state of the team, I want to get to the end of the season as fast as possible. So next episode, we will play the remaining games that we have on our schedule, and what that does mean is after we get out of this bye week, we will take on the Texans, 49ers, Chargers, Bills. These 7 games, we are going to play them all in the next episode. It's going to be a fun episode, man. Lots of action, and you're not going to want to miss a single thing. So if you're excited about that as well, I need you guys to do me a massive favor. Smack that like button, hit that subscribe button if you have to be brand new. This is John J. Gaming on the mic signing off. But I'm hoping you're all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.